Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back for another career and spirituality conversation. I'm happy to see everyone, even though I don't see you. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm your host, Julie Pone, and I help spiritual seekers having a career experience to align what they do for a living with who they are as a soul. And to help me out today with this mission, I'm delighted to have Karen Dufour Deschamps. I love your name, Karen.
Oh, thank you. I love when a native French speaker pronounces my name correctly. It's
Yeah.
just lovely.
Oh, Karen, so how are you today?
I'm doing great, actually. I'm a little cold because it's cold here. I'm on an island in the Salish Sea outside of Seattle, Washington, in the US. And we're having unseasonably cold weather. And I'm grateful we don't have the fires that I have just south of us. So, you know,
Yeah.
blessings that we have Mother Nature taking care of us. It's damp and it's cold, but I'm
Uh,
happy to be here.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I can resonate in Ireland with the cold and damp. That's okay. We're aligned. We're aligned. We're on the same
Yeah,
wave.
yes, we're on the same wave across the globe. Exactly. Yes.
So Karen, I'm delighted to have you. Before we start our proper chat, we're gonna do a short grounding, like I always do at the start, so that everyone can listen then with a better attention. And I I do this mostly for myself so that I I get into it and I relax before interviewing you. So let's do it
Yes.
together.
Yes. Great.
Everyone who's listening, if you can, don't do that if you're in a car or something, but then close your eyes. And first, let's make ourselves aware of the weight of our bodies where we're sitting and the weight of our feet on the ground. Pressing our feet on the ground to connect with the earth underneath. And then allowing our focus, our attention to move back from our feet all the way up through our legs and our torso and into our chest. And right in the middle of our chest where our heart is. And we're going to connect with our hearts either by touching our heart with our hand or by tuning in to the sensations of our hearts beating, or even tuning into the sound of our heart beating, listening to the sounds of our own body. And once we are feeling nicely connected with the heart, let's just imagine as if our breath is flowing in and out directly through the heart. And slowing down our breathing, deepening our breathing. And for about a minute together, let's just breathe in an harmonious, slow, deep rhythm. And let's do one more cycle of breath. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes again.
Oh, Julie, that was so, so lovely. Oh,
Yeah, can you feel how suddenly,
oh.
the first breath is okay, second, and then after the third one, suddenly everything seems to, ah,
And what I love about this is not only hearing my heart,
yeah.
but feeling the temperature change.
Oh,
So I could feel the warmth coming from my heart as I was pressing and putting all my attention on the
oh,
heart.
I love
And and as you know, right now I have a heart condition. And so it's I've been paying a lot of attention to my heart and really listening to my heart, both from my sage perspective, this, the intuitive side, and then the analytical, because my cardiologist has me wear an Apple Watch so I can tell when I'm in AFib, a flutter, high heart rate. So I
it.
have the left and the right brain going together, which is this is who we are, right? We're
Yeah,
all the complexity. And I just want to say, I know when we say left and right brain, we're simplifying the regions of the brain, but it's the vernacular that most of us know. So I'm using left for rational, right for more the intuitive.
and we'll talk about that a lot more during our conversation, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but first of all, I want people to know that Karen has been coaching for a crazy amount of time since 1995, right?
In 1995, formally starting my formal practice,
Yeah.
where I'll be honest, I really didn't know what I was doing.
Oh,
I just knew that what I'm really good at is asking questions. And and at the time, I really loved helping people find solutions. It was all about the doing, doing, doing.
yeah,
And I have had a very non-traditional career trajectory. I
okay.
didn't, I didn't go to school and then get my BA and then master's and then certifications. I dropped out of university. I
Oh,
dropped out and was only going to take 6 months off. I had a really tough year in college. I had more than enough credits. I just didn't have the right credits. And somebody gave me an offer to go to New York City and do something totally different. And I thought, okay, I'll just do 6 months and come back. Today we call it a gap year. My gap year was 6 years.
funny you're saying that. I went to Ireland for 6 months 20 years ago, and I'm still there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And my 6 year gap year was amazing. I
yeah.
got to work for the US State Department. I got to work for the United Nations. I got
Wow.
to work in refugee camps. I got to travel around Southeast Asia and the Pacific for 6 months,
Yeah.
solo backpacking. I always say that was my best education ever.
Mm.
Totally outside the classroom, having to depend on oneself. Um, and I did all of this without having a BA. I didn't have my degree at the time.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I did want to get that degree. So I did get that degree. And then my first love has always been training. It's always been education. It's always been teaching.
Yeah.
So may I share a funny story with your audience about my little
Yes.
sister? So I'm the eldest of four, and
Uh,
we're four within 5 years, good old Catholic family. And the Catholic is important when we get to the spirituality.
Okay.
So Kimmy is 18 months younger than I am. And I love school. I love learning. To this day, I'm a lifelong learner. That's why you have all these initials after my name, because I just do one coaching certification. I just love learning. So back then, it was half day kindergarten at 5 years old. So I would go to kindergarten. I would learn from Mrs. Beneteau because I went to a French Catholic school in Canada. And I'd come home and I would be so excited that I had to teach somebody what I just learned. And so I would sit down, little Kimmy, like, Kimmy, guess what I learned? And I would scribble. And
Yeah.
that Christmas, we got a blackboard. Back then, they were called blackboards. They're whiteboards now, but they were blackboards with the chalk
Oh, I
dripping
remember those. Yeah.
dust all over. We're
Yeah.
definitely showing our age, Julie.
Yeah.
So I would be writing, and I didn't know how to write cursive at 5 years old, but I just pretended. I just mimicked Mrs. Beneteau. And
Yeah.
Kimmy was sitting there with her eyes so open, like, wow, big sister, this is so cool.
How
So
old was Kimmy then?
she was 18 months younger. So if I was 5, she was 3.5. Okay. So she's a sponge. She's taking this all in. So every day in the afternoon, Karen played big sister teacher.
Yeah.
So guess what happened after a year when Kimmy is supposed to go to kindergarten? She goes to kindergarten. She knows all this
She knows
stuff.
everything. Yeah.
So they skipped her a grade. So I was already teacher of the year at 5 years old.
Wow, great job. So did you
So
actually
you know what
become a
they say? You know what
no?
they say about your careers? Look back at what you were doing at 5 years old. I was loving what I was doing at 5 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's no surprise that today I'm a mentor coach. I still do training,
Yeah.
and I love helping people get to their next level. So it's all there. So my non-career trajectory to a coach led me to all these different places, but it started with facilitation. It started with training and organizations, leading training efforts, designing training, doing the real training and development route. Then I went into HR for a while, but I really didn't like, I felt like I was too much in a box, too contained in a box. And then I took an amazing facilitation course of how to be a facilitator of groups. And that just opened up the possibilities, because this one model, all I did was ask questions and listen. And it was transformative with these groups. And I thought, wow, this is amazing stuff. So I started mentoring with other more senior coaches and organization development professionals, and said, can I come and do work with you? I'll do it for free. I just want to learn on the job, because I made a choice not to go and get a master's. And I
Yeah.
say this, and there's still a little bit of shame, but I try to quiet that saboteur, because there's so much about certificates and academia in terms of credibility. You know what? I'm 65 years old. I'm a damn good coach, and I don't have a master's, and I'm owning that.
Yeah.
So I was doing the training, the facilitation, the HR, and I had just finished in 1995. I had just was just finishing up a 6-year program with the Seattle City Attorney's Office. I was working in the criminal justice system with domestic violence and child abuse victims going through the court system. And I had been designing a training program for advocates to go through it. And I had a caseload myself. And that was wrapping up. And I realized I didn't want to do the case management anymore. I loved the training piece. So I did something really bold. And if I look back on it now, it wasn't very business smart. I just said, I'm going to be a consultant, and I'm going to just start doing training and development.
Okay.
And I did it without really a plan. And I don't have a business sense per se. I don't think like an MBA person. And so I made a lot of mistakes. But one thing, and I think you know this about me, is I'm persistent and I don't stop.
Oh yeah.
And so I just kept on putting myself out there over and over again. I think one of the lessons is you got to be willing to fall down to stand back up again, just like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then it was in 1995 that I started taking these coaching courses, like a weekend course here. This is way before online courses. And I realized, oh, I love this. This is amazing. I don't know how I'm going to make a living on it, but this is amazing. So I just started calling myself a coach.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a certificate in coaching. I wasn't credentialed by the ICF. I wasn't anything. I was just calling myself a coach. And I can't remember how I got the first couple of clients I had, but they were all professionals. I remember two of them were principals. Another one was in high tech. This is in the 90s. Can't remember the other. And they were all going through a career transition. And I thought, well, I've had a lot of career transitions in my life.
Mhm.
So I can coach to that. And here's something else I did very intuitively, which now, given the kind of coaching I do and you do with the positive intelligence program, is that I work really well with a structure.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
if I go back to what I did with little Kimmy, is I'd
Yeah.
come home from school every day and every afternoon I played teacher. And I also know one of my saboteurs, I don't know if you talked about saboteurs in your programs, but I have a high restless. So I go after every new shiny thing.
Yeah.
A structure keeps me focused and on target. So I knew that if when I had to make big changes, I would put in a structure. So
Okay.
I created this coaching program with a structure. And I said, for 30 days, I will have contact with you every day for 30 days, client,
So you brought the structure to the client.
to the client. And back then, this is before WhatsApp, this is before texting, I sent an email. So every day I sent an email.
Yeah.
And today we would call it e-coaching, which is electronic coaching. But back then, I was just asking questions, or I was being supportive or being their accountability partner with coaching questions by email and invite them to reflect, to journal, to send it back if they were comfortable. And then we would have a telephone. This is before Zoom days. We
Yeah.
would have a telephone coaching call once a week. And
Yeah.
we did this for 4 weeks. And my clients got amazing results in 4 weeks.
So you were ahead of the curve at the time, and now, yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't even realize it. And I certainly didn't understand how the brain worked and neuroscience and how, just how the cues work for building up new habits, and how I, as their champion, was celebrating and helping them celebrate so they could create those dopamine, so they could create that and lock in that change. I was just doing what I know how to do intuitively.
Yeah, it's amazing because everything, like just listening to your own experience, who you are, li- and just trusting what worked for you.
Yes.
It's now everything that was working for you that worked with your clients is now being backed up and studied and backed up by science and research and everything. And so now you've done all of this through sheer wisdom, insights, like intuition, and now you have. And it's funny because we were talking about the two sides of the brain earlier. So you've done all of this through, I don't know which one is which one, which side,
Right, the right is the intuitive.
the right intuitive side, and now like everyone else is bringing, like, is showing you like, oh yeah, but like this is neuroscience, and this is this,
But
and
the
you
beauty of it, Julie, is that it validates, right? Because
validate
remember,
everything.
I didn't go the academic route. I didn't do a master's thesis or a PhD thesis. Let somebody else do it. I'm going to work on what works for me, which
Mhm.
has always been experiential,
Yeah.
just doing it, figuring out. I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, we're talking about mid 1995 to where I'm at today, 2025. A lot of mistakes along the way. And most of them were business mistakes, because
Mhm.
what I didn't do is I didn't access the knowledge of the left brain of business folks. If I
Okay.
would do anything differently, that's what I would have done. And
Mhm.
having said that, it pushed me to really listen to my intuitive, that
Mhm.
little, Shirzad calls it his little whisper.
Yeah, we're gonna have to explain. We are gonna have to explain who's
Oh,
Shirzad, and like, because people don't necessarily know. We're into that little circle, you and me. So like we
okay. I didn't know
forgot.
how much your
Yeah,
listeners know and
yeah.
how much you've
But
talked to them.
it's okay. We'll get into that. But
But
I like reflecting on what you've told us already,
right.
and your career trajectory. It feels like you've somehow there's been zero misalignment. You've always followed your heart, is that true, like, or have you had periods of time
Oh
where
my
you
God,
felt
I've
that you
had
went off track?
Oh yeah, total periods of being off track.
Yeah.
So so during this time, I'm a single woman. I'm supporting myself, and I
Mhm.
get myself into a lot of financial down parts. And I'm going to be very candid with our audience because I don't think we talk about financial loss enough.
Okay.
And especially for women, and there's all this shame around money because we don't talk about it, and for women. And so I had to file bankruptcy.
Mhm.
I own my house now, but I almost lost it 2 times for foreclosure. And again, part of it is not doing the business sense. And
Mhm.
here's something I learned just recently is that I do have some neurodivergence around numbers. It's
Mm.
not exactly dyslexia. There's something else going on, but I just realized it. And I have to say, I was like, oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It is a recognition of, and it's what we tell our clients all the time, right? We focus on their strengths, and then
Mhm.
where can they get support, direction, you know, structure to work on the things they don't do well so that they can get what they need.
Yeah.
And I also think because of my background of being so persistent and resilient,
Mhm.
I resisted getting support from other people.
Yep.
So I thought I could do it myself because I
Mhm.
had done it myself for so many years. I
Mhm.
mean, again, 6 months solo backpacking through the
Yeah.
jungles in
Wow.
Thailand, in Malaysia. I still can remember the leeches. You know, leeches are those sucking animals, little, I don't know, they're not
Yeah.
insects, but they're bigger than that. And there's blood all over me as I'm going through the jungle with these other travelers. And, I just think about all these different things I did, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, solo jumping, not tandem jumping, solo jumping at 3,400 feet. I don't know what that is in meters, sorry. But so
So,
I've got
yeah. With a parachute, I gather.
a parachute, yes, because I'm standing here today or sitting here today. So I say this because I've, I've been bold. I've been willing to take risk. I'm definitely a high risk taker. I'm probably more risk adverse as I've gotten older, which I know is a symptom of getting older.
Mm.
Um, However, every time I took a risk and I still was standing, I'm alive, it builds in that neural pathway saying you can take a risk, right? So I took some financial risks that looking back on were probably not the wisest.
Yeah.
However, getting back to this program that we haven't fully explained,
Yeah.
everything that we do, everything that turned out bad is turned into a gift and opportunity. My bankruptcy, my almost 2 times foreclosure has turned into a gift and opportunity because I'm trying to take away the shame,
Mhm.
and especially the shame for women.
Yeah.
And I'm also saying what I learned from it. So, one of the things I did, which was very radical, and it's a whole story of how I got there, but I went to go work in the world's largest oil and gas company
Wow.
in the Middle East.
Ah,
And for
fantastic.
the first time in my life, I was making 6 figures.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
went from, as my one friend said, Karen, you were scrubbing toilets for $25 an hour. And I was so close to foreclosure, and I needed to do something. I had to bring in cash some way quick. And when you're not feeling good about yourself, it's not a good time to be a coach and try to bring in business. And so fast forward, I did have another job, an interim job, but I got this job 6 figures. I've never made 6 figures in my life. This was 10 years ago in 2014.
Yeah.
And so I spent the last 10 years working in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And 8 of those years I was making 6 figures, first in Saudi Arabia and then in Oman.
Mhm.
And the freedom to buy whatever I wanted to buy, whenever I wanted to. After paying off my bills, after totally getting out of debt, I had a debt management plan because I was able to keep my house, paid off my house, got out of debt, build up an IRA retirement fund. And then whatever I had left over, okay, I want to go to Thailand for my birthday. I went to Thailand for my birthday. I want to go back to Malaysia for my birthday. I go back to Malaysia for my birthday. So it was 10 years of, I got to do what I love, which was coaching. There was some training in there. I was leading culture-wide and change management systems across organizations. I was leading leadership retreats out with my Arab clients. If you see, I don't know if I change it here. Do you see what's above me up here?
I see something red, and I see something that looks like a I don't know the name, like
Yeah,
some
so it's a
the basket.
basket.
The
So I'm
basket.
kind of creating this, it's creating, this is very much in the Arab culture. So it is a rug that you would put on the desert,
Yeah.
and the basket just represents, because they always have these beautiful woven baskets that they put everything in, from food to, you know, materials to whatever. But can you imagine, I'm leading this retreat. We go on a boat to this little beach and then go walking into the desert, and I'm leading 15 guys, they're all guys, on a retreat, on a leadership retreat, and asking coaching like questions
Mm,
underneath the stars, sitting around on a fabric similar to that. And for the Arab culture, which is so much a part of nature, being outside, telling stories, they're storytellers. I mean, the Arabic language is just rich in metaphor and storytellers. They are connecting to their heritage, to their traditions, to their souls. It was so powerful. And I'm sitting there and I'm noticing what my client, these, all of these are my clients,
mhm,
and they're all together now. And I'm noticing what they're sharing in this circle with their peers is much more than what they've shared with me one-on-one.
mm,
And I'm thinking it's even more vulnerability for them to share among their peers. And oh, by the way, their boss is there. And I challenge him in the middle of all of them to be vulnerable, so that his team of leaders will step up and talk. Julie, when that happens, magic happens. It's just so profound. And I'm sitting there thinking, I am a white Western woman having this conversation with these Arab men. There was one Dutch man, one French man, and one Italian, but the rest were all Arab. And we're having some really open, heart to heart conversations about how they show up as a leader.
mm,
So I loved your opening about your alignment with soul. And my alignment is coaching leaders to be aligned with who they are and how they show up.
mhm.
And so we're having this profound conversation out in the desert underneath the moon. And I get to be a part of that. What a gift. That will still stay with me forever.
We said that will still stay with you forever. Is that not what you're doing anymore? Like, where are
I
you?
want to do more of it. So I've been back from the Middle East since last March.
Yeah.
A lot has changed in the Middle East. A lot have
Mhm.
changed. I was no longer able to continue to work for those companies because of their rules around age. So I
Oh,
mentioned I'm 65. So in the Middle East, in the Gulf nations, expats, which is what we're considered, because we were brought in as an expert expat. We got a special visa to work there. We can only work until we're age 60. And I
ah,
know in North America, probably in Europe, there's all these quote unquote age discrimination rules. But in the Middle East, it's all about making sure there's enough jobs for the younger generation. So they even though I had an age deadline of 60, even my local Arabs were encouraged to take early retirement at 55 before go start your own business, so that the 30-year-olds would have a position, because there's such a huge population.
Mhm.
So they basically said, Karen, go and get your business license as a consultant, and then we can come and use you. And then COVID happened. So all of this happened at the time of COVID. I was
Okay.
actually in Germany in March of 2020, working for this company, leading these facilitation workshops with the Omanis and the Germans, because the Omanis had just purchased this company, this German company. And I was designing and delivering a program on cultural differences, bridging the cultural divide. And I was doing coaching. When my Omani boss said, Karen, you better get back to Oman, otherwise they're closing the border. So I got back to Oman and they closed the border. And I was quote unquote stuck for over 3 months. I could not leave the country. My contract was done, had no more work, could not work, couldn't get my business license because all the government offices were closed to issue me this. So great example of surrendering. And this is where I got introduced to the PQ app program.
Okay.
And
So let's talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, so I already knew about Shirzad and positive intelligence. And here's what the irony is, Julie. I was using Shirzad's saboteur assessment
Okay.
for
So
your
let's
listeners.
let's clear it first for the audience. So like Shirzad is Shirzad Shamin,
Thank you.
right? Shirzad Shamin originally wrote a book called Positive Intelligence.
You see it up there on my
Yeah.
shelf.
Yes. Yeah. And turn the book into an app that beyond an app is a coaching program. We can say that. And which
It's a
is
mental fitness program,
yes, a
which
mental fitness.
incorporates
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah. Where we are able to assess and recognize how we show up when we are not at our best, when we're into, like, should we say, into negative emotions, and that depending on our personality, there's different archetypes that we call saboteurs that are playing out in our life. So that's
But
when
the
we
app is more than that, Julie. The
oh,
app is
absolutely,
actually
yeah,
building mental muscles. It's
yeah.
actually training, changing the brain waves in our brain, in your brain and mine. And if we went under an MRI, we would see the change with the gray matter. It is like so amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm starting so that people have
Yes,
have a
yes,
picture, so
yes.
that so that they can understand what you meant, because you've mentioned saboteurs a few times. So like
Okay,
the
thank you.
saboteurs is like the archetypes of, like, maybe we have a,
Yes.
we said that we have, for instance, you said you had a restless saboteur. I know I have a pleaser saboteur.
Ah, yes.
So like different, so like people I'm
Yeah,
sure are getting that, you could have a controller saboteur, like, a
I have a
perfect.
controller saboteur, which is I push, push, push
Yeah,
instead of pull.
yeah.
Kimmy, you are going to sit down. I am going to teach you today.
Kimmy knows a lot about the controller saboteur. Yeah. And so, but that's when we're not at all, when we are
Our best. Yes.
operating under, like, the pressure of stress or negativity.
Yes.
But then when we are not, there is a way that this program helps us to build ourselves, is to shift from this state to the more positive state, where our brain, that activates different parts of our brain. And then it's the beautiful state that you mentioned as well at the start, the sage.
Right.
So, and
I would
yeah,
say, I would say it does more than help. I would say it transforms
yeah,
us.
yeah,
So, of course, and Shirzad mentions this all the time, we're human. We're going to get hijacked every day. Our saboteurs, these archetypes you're talking about, come up every day. We're never in sage 24/7. It's impossible. However, and you and I, Julie, have been doing this program for over 4.5 years. We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary of doing this
yeah, sure.
program in the app. It's amazing to me. And I know, and I know the difference I feel.
Mm-mm.
So the transformation is I'm at a higher percent of my best self more often per day than I was before I did the program. And then it manifests itself in relationships, in well-being, and in performance, and definitely performance.
Mm.
And the well-being is my struggle right now, because as we said at the very beginning, I do have these heart issues And my heart issues really came to the forefront during COVID. They were not COVID related, but they were identified because I had to, when I finally did leave Oman and came back to the US and had my medical team, there were challenges. It was challenging to get medical treatment for things not COVID related. So everything took a long time. So I didn't get diagnosed for over a year and really, really struggled with a lot of these physical challenges. So in the last 4 years, I ebbed and flow with feeling really great, had one heart procedure, felt great, went back overseas, went back to Saudi, did a different kind of job. Wow, learned a lot, saw all the changes that had happened in Saudi because I first was there in 2014. Then I go back there in 2021. Amazing. And then I go back to Oman, having just gone to Oman in 2018. I go back in 2023 and then 2024. Amazing changes and transformation. But physically right now, I cannot live in that culture in terms of the temperature. I can't live in really hot temperatures. So I'm doing my work with my clients remotely, just like you're in Ireland and I'm in the US right now. So a lot has changed. And so we adapt, right? We are adaptive creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, and having this structure, because this is a structure too. You said you like the structure was what helped you and how you help your clients. But like this mental fitness program actually gives us a structure into,
Oh,
and habits and how to take care of ourselves mentally. And so, yeah, but I want
and you said something before you led us
on, I've
through
just lost
that.
you for a second. Yes,
You
perfect.
said something before you took us through that grounding exercise, which we call PQ reps, positive
Yeah.
intelligence reps. As you said, you do it more for yourself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I lead clients. I lead everybody I coach through PQ reps at the beginning of our coaching session, even if
Yeah.
they've never heard of Shirzad Shamin, even if they never read the book, even if they never went through the app. We go through this because I want them to access that part of their brain, that sage, thriving, intuitive part of their brain as we go into the coaching session to focus on what it is that's really important to them for this time.
Which to me is the side that we need like to connect spiritually, because we need to talk about that too. We haven't got
Yes,
much
yes.
insight about. But did you not say to me that you could lead us for give everyone a little bit of a taste of what these PQ reps are? Did you
Yeah,
not?
well, you gave us a taste of it before, so I'm just gonna focus on a couple others that are really I usually do several minutes of it, but I'll just do like 2 minutes of it. And I'm gonna take off my glasses and we're
So
gonna
like
close up.
everyone, we are gonna launch into some PQ reps. Yes.
Yes, yes. And the reason why we invite people to close their eyes is that we know the visual processing in the brain takes up a lot of brain energy. So when we close our eyes and turn off the visual externally, we're more likely to see the visual internally. And so we're mainly going to use tactile and auditory, because last time you were doing breathing. You also did some auditory. And so we're going to do the very simple of taking a thumb with your forefinger and touching them ever so gently, ever so softly and lightly, that you can feel the fingertip ridges on your forefinger and your thumb. And you're slowly going to move one finger against the thumb in one direction and feel all those sensations of touch. Do your fingers feel rough or smooth? Can you sense the temperature? And while you're doing this, just notice your breathing. And while you're still touching that fingertip, notice the ambient sounds in your space. I have an analog clock with a battery that's ticking loudly. And when we're in silence, sounds amplify. And bring your awareness to any sounds outside of your internal space. You might be close to a road or sounds outside, the birds, an airplane above. And then bring your awareness to the sounds of your own breathing. And then when you're ready, bring your hands back to the resting position. And before you open your eyes, just gently, with a downward look, before coming on screen, just look down, gently opening up your eyes and noticing, feeling the fluttering of your eyelashes as you look at your keyboard, and then coming back onto screen. And notice how you're feeling.
The grounding is incredible. That's what I find the most. It's like
Just
suddenly,
so calm.
yeah, yeah.
Imagine, Julie, and we do imagine it because we do it. We do this several times throughout the day. We just stop what we're doing and we take a break. And when I was working internally and in working in an open, open space type of workplace, I'd go into the women's bathroom and just go sit in a stall and do this, or go outside where nobody could see me. And when I got more bold, I would invite other people to come and do it with me. And here's something, talking about the spiritual aspect, that I did not know, I did not anticipate, is that in the Arab culture, in the Muslim culture, doing PQ reps, stopping and doing something like this was so aligned to those who practice praying 5 times a day. So my Muslim clients that I'm working with now, what they love about it is they say it enhances their prayer. They're more present for their praying. And some of them time it with their prayers because there's a whole ritual one has to do before they pray. You have to cleanse yourself. So they might do it before, they might do it afterwards, but it's not unusual. One of the biggest cultural adjustments when I went into first working in Saudi is everybody would stop a meeting and go and pray. We had prayer rooms in the workplace and come back to the meeting. Amazing.
And it's funny because I know we talked about that before, the two of us, but it gave me like a realization that of the wisdom of like different religions, like with this different, because that seemed to be like so anchored in somehow like self-care and common sense.
Wisdom and natural wisdom and natural wisdom.
Yeah, because this program, what was groundbreaking for me when I first did the program is that the interruption throughout the day, that you interrupt yourself a few times during the day to come back to yourself, the
Yes.
difference it makes in everything, in your ability to perform and function and be yourself and be centered. But look, people who pray 5 times a day, they have been doing that. They
Yes,
interrupt their
for
day and they go back.
centuries, for centuries. So it's interrupting their thinking part of their brain, the left side of their brain, to access the wisdom, intuitive side. And you're right, they've been doing it for decades, for not centuries, not decades, centuries. So that really helped shifted my perspective, because we all have perspectives, we all have biases. As I mentioned, I was raised Catholic. I moved to the US when I was 12. We moved from a very Catholic neighborhood in Canada to an all Jewish neighborhood outside of Detroit, Michigan. I was the only Catholic on the street. I had never had that experience before. Went to a public school versus a parochial Catholic school, then lived all over, lived in Malaysia, which is primarily a Muslim culture, also had Buddhism as well, and Christianity. So I was surrounded by all these different religions and spiritual practices. And then when I went to Saudi, which is, really, when you look at Mecca and Medina, really the core of where Islam is practiced, it was so embedded, much more so than I had ever experienced it. It really made me pause and saying, even though I am not a Muslim, there was never a question that I needed to convert in order to do this work. I could still be me, and I have a great deal of respect for my Muslim brothers and sisters. And I would say it has enhanced my own spiritual practice, which is not based on any dogma at this point. I'm no longer a Catholic. Catholics, the Pope would say you're always a Catholic, but I'm no longer a practicing Catholic. I'm no longer a believer. I'm no longer a believer in the church. And I would say my spiritual practice is nature. I'm looking out my window right now. The beauty of where we live on this part of the globe is that it's all green. I even have my perennial crocuses already coming up because we've had such an unusually warm January. And nature is what feeds my soul. So I live on an island. I go for walks on the beach, the water. There's something about an island that I just get this spiritual grounding. When I was working for the United Nations in a refugee camp, it was an island in the middle of the South China Sea, which is so interesting because the South China Sea at this point, it's been like this for a while, is a source of a lot of conflict. Who owns this island? On this island, we were all refugees and staff on this very small island with no running water, no electricity. Everything was shipped in, the generators, the little bit of water, all the food. But there's something about an island. I just spent 2 weeks up in the Canadian Gulf Islands in Salt Spring Island, which is very similar to Vashon Island, where I live now. There's something about an island. It just feeds my soul.
And how does it feel when you're fully fed like that, and and through your career, that the way you describe it, it really feels that you found like ways to express yourself in your career that were very much soul feeding. So how do other people can recognize that within themselves when if they're not on the right track now? Like what, how could you say, what would you say to them, like, to support, or like to give them some advice?
Yeah. So as coaches, we don't give them advice, but what I love doing is leading my clients through contemplation exercises and visualization exercises. So I'll be honest, when I was in the Middle East, in this very, the desert, the Arab temperatures, the humidity, I'm sweating profusely because the temperatures can be up to 120 Fahrenheit, and I am just dripping with sweat. Or I'm in the desert and it's really, really hot, and I'm just yearning for the moisture of the Pacific Northwest, whether I'm in Canada or the US, it's very similar climate. And so I would tap into visualization. I would tap into what I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is during those, especially those 8 years when I was working full time for both two organizations as an employee, they have a very generous leave policy. So it's not unusual. You have 6 weeks off of holiday. And I would always spend 1 month back here, usually in August when it was the hottest there. And you know where I found myself spending most of the time? In my garden, getting my hands dirty in the dirt, feeling the moisture,
Yeah.
feeling my plants, they're growing. And it's amazing. I remember I actually had a garden in Saudi. I was growing tomatoes and I was amazed that I could grow tomatoes. Add a lot of water to them. But I'm saying I just had to connect with the earth so much when I came back. And that would feed me as I prepared to go back to this culture that was so different than mine. And yet I just brought such a curiosity to it.
Mm. And does it not, say like it was so grounding here, well, here where you are now, compared
Right.
to that you were feeding yourself from that. So because of the climate and like, does it not, were you not able to feel that same, nature nourishment from there?
Oh, there were times I definitely could. I mean, so there was a beach access that we would have access to in Dhahran, which is on the eastern peninsula of Saudi Arabia. And I would go there and I would be on the ocean and on the beach. It's just water for me is such the spiritual connection. I would go to Jeddah and I would walk along the beach and love the beach. In Oman, what I loved about Oman is you have the mountains, you have the beach, you have the water. Um, and I lived in a small Omani, it was small at the time, it's growing now, it was small Omani village right on the water. I
Mhm.
could see the water from my little flat. And during lockdown, even though I wasn't supposed to, we weren't supposed to leave, I'd
Yeah.
sneak out and you would crawl underneath one of those tunnels under the road and you would get to the ocean on the other side. So it's literally, I could see it. So I would crawl underneath it and go swimming so I could be in the water during lockdown, get my exercise in, get my water, then sneak back into my flat because there were no Omani police out there early in the morning patrolling.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like we need to find, for you it's water,
Yes,
pure
yes.
water. We all need to find that one,
Element. Find
that
the element.
element that is like feeding us.
Yes. And I think, if we want to get into astrology, I'm an Aries, I'm bold, I'm a big fire sign.
Mm.
Makes sense that I go to water because water is the opposite of the fire, right? Water calms my fire energy.
Yeah.
It calms my fire is what fuels my controller. And as we know, under each of these archetypes is an
Mhm.
underlying strength.
Yeah.
So the strength of the controller is I am persistent. I
Mhm.
get things done. I don't give up.
Yeah,
My whole story is not giving up, right?
I love that. So it's like the fire of the fire. Yeah, yeah, the fire of the fire, when it's fueled by fire, can go overboard into yeah,
Controller
the
saboteur for me.
controlling, yeah, the controlling side of the controller. When it's balanced with the water, you get into that wisdom of the controller, is the action of the controller, but not overboard, overflowing into the sabotaging aspect of it.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great, I never explained it that way, but Julie, you nailed it. That is just perfect. And that's probably why I'm so called to being on an island. I always have access to water.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like when I'm not here for a while, I used to do a lot of traveling all around North America. I would always like, I just gotta get back to this island.
yeah. So we all got to find this. So we all have these strengths that can go unchecked and overboard and develop into their sabotaging aspect, that when we find the right element, like you said, that feeds us and regulates us, then
Yes,
we're going back, this saboteur turns back into their original positive expanding aspect, which is like our strength, the strength that we are most yeah, that makes us. I guess we all each personality we have a different uh, strengths, right?
Right. But as we know, we have all of the 10
Yeah,
saboteurs.
yeah,
So I don't know about you, but when I first started, my controller was a 10. And I
yeah,
swear the first couple years, that's all I could see was the controller saboteur. As I was able to lower that, decrease that 10, guess what happened? Some of those more silent saboteurs that couldn't surface because the controller was so big have started to come up. So I've had to look at my victim saboteur.
yeah.
Definitely my stickler saboteur. My restless was always there as well. The avoider, I never thought of myself as having an avoider because the controller was so big, but oh, that's there as well.
Mm,
So it's interesting how the deeper we do this work,
yeah,
I did the positive intelligence mastery program, the 6 month really deep dive with Shirzad, where we really embodied each of the saboteur archetypal experiences. And that's how one gets in touch. And so, what I love about doing this type of, we call it PQ powered coaching,
yeah.
just like the PQ reps, we get to access what's happening with our sensations.
Mhm.
So even when I was doing this and inviting our listeners to really feel the sensations in a coaching session, I might even go even deeper with feeling what's going on in your body and where in your body, and
Mhm.
really even doing more of a somatic
Yeah.
experience with coaching.
Mm.
So it can go as deep or not.
Yeah. But what I love about what you said is like yes, we all have the 10 saboteurs, but it also means that we all have those strengths. And then when
Yes,
that next saboteur shows up, is like, oh, but like, when I balance this one out, when I put water onto this fire, I will have
yes,
access to that strength.
yes. Oh, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Yes, yes. Are you able to share with your listeners our saboteur strengths with your podcast? I don't know if you're able to share that. I don't know where you post this, but
What you mean to share it, as in just say which saboteurs, like,
oh, we have the document of the underlying strengths of the saboteurs.
oh, yeah, no, I can, like maybe I won't go into sharing that, but that's something that I could, yeah, get into, share separately, maybe.
Yes,
But
yes, yes,
yeah, because I'm also keeping an eye on the time. I know you have
yes,
places you need to
yes,
get to soon. And
yes.
how are you doing with time? Do you have a few more minutes?
I have a few more minutes. What would be most important for your audience to hear from?
What I would love to ask you is like, is there something that we haven't discussed that you feel you need to express?
Ah, so, so now in the last 3 years, because what I didn't tell people in my non traditional trajectory as a coach is that I did become certified. I
Mhm.
became certified as a coactive coach. It was a very robust program. It's a 200-hour minimum program.
Oh,
ICF only requires 60 hours to even start the credentialing process. I did 200 hours of it. I've done a lot of other certifications. And then I became credentialed. So now I'm a PCC level. I have thousands of hours of coaching. And now in the last 3 years, I'm allowed to be a mentor coach because I've done a sufficient amount of ethics in coaching, and you have to have a certain amount of hours. And what I love about mentoring other coaches, it kind of goes back to my 5-year-old self with little Kimmy coming home from kindergarten. And so as a mentor, I am really guiding and helping fellow coaches really step into their who they are, the being part, not the doing part. They can do the doing part. There are so many coaching programs where they can learn the doing part. I want them to step into the being part. And every time I have a new mentor client, um, I just met with this woman, and her her trajectory is similar to mine in terms of she's internally now, and it's just I love the starting point, and I love to where they end up, and they never end up because it's a growing process. So I guess I'll leave our listeners with What were you doing when you were 5 years old?
Yeah,
What
love
were
that.
you doing, Julie, when you were 5 years old?
Yeah, great question. What was I doing? It's funny because like I realize with hindsight about my own when I look back on my journey, there's like so many things that I've done later on in life that I was like, oh, but when I was a kid, I actually loved to, the crystals. I did a course about crystal healing. And then I realized, oh, but it's true. When I was a kid, I was so attracted by that. And then it's like, oh, and when I started doing massage, I realized, oh, but it's funny. When I was younger, I used to massage my friends. They all loved it. And I'd forgotten about that.
Mhm.
All of these things, like, and for so many, like, it's funny how sometimes, like, you get to do some things, you forget about what was like the passion that you had when you were 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love
what
that.
what
We
were
can
you
always come
doing?
back to those passions.
Yeah.
Give
Mm.
ourselves permission.
Yeah.
Quiet the saboteur thoughts
Yeah.
and give ourselves permission.
Yeah. I love that. And Karen, before I let you go, where can people find you?
Okay. They can find me. I coach globally across various time zones.
Yeah.
So my website is, where shall I put it? It's innercore.com. It's INNERCOR. No
Yeah.
E at the end of core,
Oh.
because I'm
I
spelling it the Latin way.
yeah.
The Latin way for core means the heart.
Oh yes, cœur in French. Look,
Yes,
there we
exactly.
are. Yeah.
Because it's all about getting to the heart of
Yeah.
the issue, of the person, of who we are, of our soul.
Yeah. And I will, when I edit the video, I will put it right there. People
Okay,
can read
great.
it.
Like most coaches, I offer a complimentary discovery session, whether you're a coach seeking mentor coaching, whether you're a leader wanting to be more aligned with who you are, whether you're an individual, whether you're going through trauma and want some trauma informed coaching. I mean, it's all about chemistry with a coach.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Karen. That
Oh,
was
Julie, it
amazing
was
here.
so great to
Yeah.
have this conversation with you in a different way than the way we've known each other over these almost 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I feel though like we've only scraped the surface. There's so much interesting things about like, culture, like, all of this mix, how anyway, I think we are due for another one. And I'm very interested
Love
in
that.
like this backpacking trip. I think there is a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
things packed in there too. Okay.
that
So
was
we'll
amazing.
have we'll definitely have another one. What do you say?
I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Karen. And so,
Okay.
everybody, thank you for listening. And I shall see you for the next conversation next month. Bye, everybody. Love you.